Hey, it's Ubuu. Today I'm going to be doing my first review. Playing games for your entertainment is of course a passion of mine, but critiquing video games and movies in my spare time is also something I enjoy quite a bit. And it was another one of my inspirations to make a YouTube channel, but I've just been putting it off until now. So I decided to give it a shot. I have a rough structure for today. It may change over time, so bear with me. I also have a rough script that I'm working with here just to kind of help me stay focused on the topic today. I will do my best to make my reviews clear and to the point. Please remember, any critiques I have are my personal opinion, and in no way are my reviews meant to demean nor diminish the hard work of the developer or developers. Today I'm reviewing Rewind or Die. Rewind or Die is developed by Comp3 Interactive, who is also a solo developer from the UK. I will link his Twitter in the description below, where you can find his Linktree URL and learn more about him and his work. The game is published by Torture Star Video, which is Puppet Combo's publishing label. Now let's get into the review, but be warned, there are spoilers ahead. The synopsis for Rewind or Die is that there's a serial killer stalking your video store, and you just got called into work on your day off. Stock shelves, deal with customers, and run for your life. There's not a whole lot of actual responsibilities in the game. You do a few things here and there, like you clean up the store, you put a few VHSs back on the shelves, and you only interact really with a couple of people from the outside. So even with the synopsis, it's not as in-depth of a job sort of simulator, kind of like Chilla's Arts games are really good at, almost to a fault, but I guess it depends what you're into. So yeah, you play as Tony, and you work at a video store, and at the beginning of the game, you're called in to cover someone's shift. And as you do your menial tasks and sort of explore the VHS store, you notice some strange things start to happen. People going missing on the radio, and eventually even a detective shows up to ask you if you have any information on the your patrons of the store, because strangely enough, the people who are going missing all have Video To Go store accounts. Which I find a bit odd why the detective would know that if then he asks you for the information on those Video To Go accounts. But anyways, yeah, so eventually Slaw, the killer, starts to stalk you in the video store, which then you inevitably have to escape. And as you try to escape, he eventually catches you and then takes you to a slaughterhouse where he keeps you in a cage. And then from then on, your objective of the game is to escape and do some small menial puzzles. Nothing too complex, but still pretty cool. Eventually there's a part where you make it to the freezer section of the slaughterhouse, and you fall through the floor in one of these sections and end up in a tunnel, like a sewer system, which I think is probably the weakest part of the game, which I'll expand on in a moment. And then once you make it through the tunnel section, you make it back to the slaughterhouse, finish a few more puzzles, and then you eventually confront Slaw and kill him. And then, depending on the actions you take through the game, you can escape with Captain, who you meet behind the video store earlier in the game. And also his a dog that you run across earlier on your way to the video store. But there's some extra steps involved with saving the dog. So today my review will be split into sections, and I'm not sure if it's necessary to discuss the achievements, but I decided to talk about a few of them today. There are 17 achievements in total, and most of them are straightforward, such as completing a chapter or solving puzzles. But I believe 9 of these 17 achievements are considered secret achievements, which I will go over now. I'll show some footage for you as well. You may not get footage for all of the achievements, because even though they're secret, They are quite straightforward once I explain them. And if you also miss any of these achievements, you can go back through using the chapter select option on the main menu to go back through and finish off these achievements for 100% completion. So one of the secret achievements is called Making Friends, where all you have to do is pet Zach in the alley, which is the small dog. You run across him in chapter 1 on your way to the video store. This one's pretty much unmissable in my opinion. I don't know why you wouldn't try to pet the dog. So yeah, that's one of them. The next one is Movie Buff. You listen to all the customers' movie facts. So in chapter 1, a customer will show up and he'll offer to tell you movie facts. So all you have to do is just continue to listen to him and exhaust all the dialogue until he says, well, I don't have any more facts. And then he anime runs out of the store. It's just quite funny. So that's all you have to do with that. Just make sure you talk to him until he's completely done sharing his facts. The next secret achievement is Arcade Master, where you beat the flap.ex or .execute high score. Which I believe, I'm not sure if you can only do it in chapter 2, but that's what I have written down. And you have to beat the score of 16. It's quite simple. Everyone knows pretty much what Flappy Bird is. But if you do make mistakes and start to die or have to restart, it has randomly generated levels. So yeah, it'll mix it up on you a little bit. Don't expect the same level over and over again. I got up to like 42 was my score, and I don't know, I've messed up a few times, but it's not too difficult. Once you get the high score, the other arcade machine slides out of the way and reveals a secret room. It has a wheelchair with a pig toy and some newspaper articles, and I believe the pictures, I'm assuming, are people who worked on the game with the developer, like maybe voice actors or something of that nature, or his friends. That's just an assumption of mine. Neat little secret room. I don't think it has any real benefit or influence on the story, but still kind of cool. Then you have Don't Give Up Your Day Job, where you have to listen to Cap's comedy material. You can do this in chapter 2 by the bin behind the store or dumpster. In chapter 2, once you're done doing the part where you have to collect all the trash around the video store, you'll take it out into the back of the store, and when you throw away the trash in the dumpster, Captain will be behind you and try to give you a little jump scare. And then you talk to him a little bit, and then once he kind of hobbles over and sits down on the ground, you just talk to him, and that should give you the achievement. The next one is Man Down. This is where you let Cap die. This will happen in the slaughterhouse. And it's where you come across the incinerator that he's trapped in. Now what you can do is take the valve wheel from the basement area that will, when you remove it, will flood the basement. Now you can take that valve over to the incinerator to turn off the gas. Now what you want to do is not turn off the gas and then put the power pack that you'll find in the incinerator, and it'll turn it on and kill Cap. Now there's another achievement that's tied to him living, which is quite simple. All you do is you can restart the chapter after killing him, and then just put the valve on, turn the gas off, put the power pack in, open it up, and now he's safe. Because opening the incinerator is tied to progression in the game. Alright, now we have No Man Left Behind. This is where you save Cap from the incinerator. Pretty straightforward, like I just said. Like I said, if you want both achievements, you can kill him by not putting the valve on and then restart the chapter, put the valve on, save him, and then continue towards the end of the game. Now have both achievements. All right, time for probably the most in-depth secret achievement. And this also gives you the best ending. So the achievement is called It Was You All Along. And the achievement is to defeat the secret boss. So in chapter 5, just before the tanning room is a locked door with a pig's face painted on it with the number 5. Unlocking the door requires you to locate and shoot the 5 hidden pig toys around the slaughterhouse. After you defeat the killer, you'll be able to do this. Once you shoot all 5 pigs, you must activate the hidden switch. the pile of skulls you'll see near the holding cells under some bales of hay. You'll go to the door, and now you'll be able to access the locked door. Once you go inside, you'll interact with a book you'll find on an altar. And then your encounter with the secret boss will begin. Now, after defeating them, don't forget the bolt cutter, because you need it for one of the next achievements. The next achievement is the Goodest Boy. Save Zack from the slaughterhouse, which you will get the bolt cutter from the secret ending, or the secret boss room, to then cut the lock on his cage, and you can free Zack. So that's pretty cool. I didn't do that on my first playthrough. I just played through normally like I generally do on games like this. But yeah, also Zack is the dog that you pet in the alleyway for the other achievement. Pretty cool. And then the next and final secret achievement is Full House, is where you leave the slaughterhouse with Cap and Zack. And this is the best ending. So to do Full House, you just make sure you don't kill Cap with the incinerator. And then you do the secret boss to get the bolt cutter, which then you'll be able to free Zack. And then when you leave, you'll get the best ending. So those are all the achievements. I figured I would cover those. If you don't find it necessary to cover achievements for reviews like this, then just let me know in the comments below. All right, now on to the next section. This section I'll be covering just my general impressions of the game when I first played through it, and then also talk about a little bit of the technical aspects of the game, which I won't spend too much time on, but it is something that I think is important to a degree. But anyways, for my general impressions, I thought it was pretty fun. I liked the aesthetics with the PSX, like retro style graphics. Those are like really popular now in a lot of these horror games that people are doing. I sort of like the idea, it sounds weird, I don't know, but I like the idea that it's like a UK game. Like, also, I forgot to mention that it's based in 1997. Of course, you know, with the video store, you can expect it being like 90s, 2000s. But I like hearing their British accents and stuff like that. It's kind of just a different thing. I find myself watching a lot of like British movies or crime shows because, you know, there's plenty of American stuff to watch, and I don't know, I've just gotten into like foreign sort of things as of late. I've enjoyed the change of scenery and sort of culture and whatnot. It's quite interesting. So seeing these characters speaking a British accent, I thought was kind of surprising, but kind of fun too. The characters have a bit of odd humor, which is funny for the most part, and generally I think it was just one of those games that I don't try to expect too much from games, like unrealistic expectations. It was just, I took it as it was advertised, and I had a pretty good time with it. I do have some issues with the game, which I will expand on soon. But yeah, general impressions of the game are that it's pretty fun, pretty straightforward, nothing crazy, but still enjoyable. So now for the technical aspects, I already mentioned the graphics, the aesthetics, I think look pretty good. Now, I looked at how you can turn off the like VHS filter. I wouldn't do that. I don't think it looks all that great without the VHS filter. It looks kind of like trippy and weird. I think it looks better with the VHS filter, in my opinion. Functionality, the game functioned really well. I had a problem with, this is on my end, more or less. Generally, when I record videos for my gameplays, I have 2 instances of OBS, like one for my game and then one for my webcam and microphone. Generally speaking, it doesn't lag too much of my system, but for this game, it was just giving it too many frame issues. Like the frame drops were pretty egregious, but that's not necessarily a problem for the game. I'm not saying that's the game's fault. But yeah, I decided I'm not going to do my like general gameplay sort of style with this game. That's why I decided to do a review instead. I thought it'd be a good time to try to get into the review side of things, because it is something I'm a bit passionate about. All right, so yeah, the game functions really well. I didn't have any crashes or bugs or any sort of ugly situations where, you know, it's just not functioning the way it should. I think everything functioned just fine. With what I was doing, I was getting over 100 frames per second. So yeah, everything worked fine on my end. And if you're curious, I have an AMD 6600 XT GPU, if that gives you any sort of idea of how you should expect your game to run. I think this should run fine on pretty much everything, but I didn't double check if it has recommended specs, like recommended settings or sort of things like you usually see on games, so I would check that for sure before you purchase it. Sound design and the music. Sound design was pretty good. I think maybe the voice acting was a little flat. I mean, not that necessarily the acting, maybe it was intentional, but it was kind of low is what I'm trying to say. Like, very just not really energetic and just really hard. It was just really low and felt sort of disconnected from what the game was trying to make you feel, maybe. I think if they bumped up the voice audio just a little bit, and I don't know if that was in the settings. I could be just totally blind and missed it in the settings, so that could be on me. But yeah, I think the voice acting was just a little bit low, but the sound design overall was pretty good. I like the music a lot. I checked out Comp3 Interactive's page, and apparently he's like a metalhead, which I can relate to. I'm a big fan of the metal genre. Some of the music is great. Like when Slaw is first chasing you like through the alleys at the beginning of the game, like that music is really good. It has this like synth wave kind of like techno old style to it, but it has like this metal design, like this, like it's mostly metal, but just with a twist, kind of, if that makes sense. Now, I do have a problem with the music in the tunnel section because, and I maybe need to expand upon this in a moment when I get to my negatives, but every time Slaw chases you in the tunnel, this loud music will play until he stops chasing you, and I think it's a little unnecessary. It just gets redundant, but I'll expand upon that in a moment. I think the level design was pretty good. I liked the way it just felt like a living world when you're at the video store and you see the cars driving by and you see people walking around in the store and stuff like that, which there's only a couple. But I think the level design was pretty good. I like the little house you start in. All the way through, I think the slaughterhouse... yeah, it's kind of... I mean, it's what do you expect from a slaughterhouse? It's a little over the top with all the blood and guts everywhere. But I think in general, level design is pretty good. I like the way the game flows from level to level. That makes sense in terms of sort of like a architectural standpoint. And yeah, for bugs, I didn't have any bugs or glitches or crashes or anything like that. So that's a good thing. Okay, well, now that I've covered those things, I'm going to move on to what I think the positives are, which I've kind of probably already covered mostly from what I've been talking about. But positives are the game has nice PSX aesthetics and it functions well. So that's very important things, that it looks good and it plays well. The characters are quirky and humorous. I like that. And the game isn't too long. For my playthrough, it took me like 1 hour and 50 minutes, like almost 2 hours. Which I think is just like the right amount of time for a horror game. I think horror games that are like 15 hours long or whatever that we have nowadays, some of the AAA ones, you just get desensitized to everything. It just takes too long, and eventually you're just sort of going through the motions, at least in my opinion. Especially long games like the Bendy and the Ink Machine games that are out now, like the newest one. It just, I don't know, it's not really horror, even though that's a very subjective term. I'm glad this game was not too long, that's all I'm saying. And I'm sure people have beaten it a lot faster than I did, even on their first playthrough, but I think the tunnel section is what took me the longest, which is my least favorite thing about the game, which I will continue to talk about in a moment. But overall, the game is charming. I like the charm of the game. I like the way it just comes across. It's not too in your face. It's not taking itself too seriously. So, yeah, those are my positives for the game. Now I'll go on to the negatives. I think the atmosphere never really gets me in the right headspace for the game. Like, it has some tonal issues. on one end, you're like these sort of dull people that are like, oh, I work in a video store. Damn, like that's kind of typical of 90s horror. Like you just, oh man, I'm just some regular dude. This sucks. My job sucks or whatever. And then there's like an over the top, like abstract serial killer all of a sudden mixing up the story, you know? And I like the killer's design. I like the pig head sort of thing because I don't know if anyone's watched American Horror Story Roanoke, which I never even finished. It's got Cuba Gooding Jr. in it, who's a great actor. But there's a character in that of a man like running around in the woods with a pig head on, and that is really, the way they did it was super scary. Like I always remembered that character, and I was like, oh my god. But the killer's design is pretty cool. I don't like villains or like, especially kinds that are supposed to be this like ridiculous serial killer, like evil, just monster of a person. Like the laughing doesn't do anything for me. That's just my personal opinion. I don't like characters that are supposed to be evil that have like too much self-awareness of what they're doing to where they just, everything's a joke. Like everything's funny. Like, ha ha ha, I'm gonna kill you. Ha 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 ha. Like it's, I think it creates a tonal, like a conflict. Because I think if he was as evil as he's being, like he's literally grinding people up in machinery at a slaughterhouse, like I would imagine a person like that not talking very much at all because they're just so demented. I understand though that if that's what they're going for is to just be this, that's what it's supposed to be, like a over the top, kind of like a satirical take on slasher horror. Maybe I missed the point, but just it didn't, maybe I expected the game to be a little bit more serious, but still I don't like killers and evil villains that laugh all the time. And just the overall vibe of the game, it never really put me, like I said, in the headspace that gave me like chills or was like, I wasn't really scared or worried about the killer in any way because of the tunnel section, which I will now talk about. The tunnel section is a big negative for me, not necessarily in design of the tunnel itself. I like the puzzles. I like the idea of being in this cavernous sort of labyrinth and how you have a killer chasing you. It just kind of didn't connect because mostly the biggest issue was the killer's AI in the tunnel. Excuse me. The killer's AI, he's basically leashed to where you are. So as soon as you fall down into the tunnel, he jumps down in after you. And you're basically told, in a sense, that you need to activate these 5 pressure switches to unlock a door. And as you go through the tunnel trying to find the switches, there's other puzzles you need to solve, like the hydraulic bridge to get across the water treatment, and finding the lever for the generator and, you know, things of that nature. The key card for this key to turn the fire off. But no matter where you go, the killer, like, knows where you are. You can hear his footsteps, which is good, and he has a bright light. He carries, like, a lantern or something with him. Which I think is all the pieces there are good, except the fact that there was a part where I was in the generator room, and he was at the door, because he knew I was in there, but he won't ever leave. So it just kind of eliminates the idea of hiding. It kind of breaks that tension of, I know he's coming, I need to hide, and I hope he doesn't see me. It's like, I know he's coming, and I know he's not going to leave. So you basically just have to force him to chase you and like do a loop around him. Oh, I hit my mic, sorry. You do a loop around him, and you run out of the room, and you make a circle, and then just you go back to the room. Like I had to go back to the generator room and try to do the puzzle before inevitably he would show back up again, and I had to run from him again. So it breaks the tension because the AI is too predictable at that point. You just kind of treat him like a stupid, you know, AI in any other game that you would, you know, like running around a box or something because they can't catch you. Or yeah, I had a big issue with that. If they were to made, also he needs to, not needs to, but it would have been more interesting to have it be a little bit more erratic We never really know where he is, and I think adding some pig noises would have been interesting. Hearing him make pig squeals or something in the distance or grunting. He doesn't do a whole lot of pig noises. He does like yell and grunt and stuff, but yeah, I just think that was sort of an issue for me at least. The tunnel section is quite just ridiculous because of the AI. I think if there was that better sense of dread and not, I need to just hurry up because I know he's going to just show up and block the door and yada yada, you know? I think that would have made the tunnel section a lot stronger, in my opinion. And the normal ending is just a bit generic, in my opinion. It cuts to Keith, who is a coworker. Let me kind of... Once you escape the slaughterhouse and finish the game, there's a cut that says 3 hours earlier, and the detectives are interviewing Keith, who's one of your coworkers, I think, and he's like, I told you that Tony called me to the store because of someone like throwing the cinder block through the glass, which happens, and I got to the store and everything was trashed and Tony was gone. And then it like zooms in on his face and it like flashes the pig head on his head or whatever. And then the game ends, which I guess is telling me that Keith was the killer. I don't know. It just felt kind of disconnected from what I was doing in the game, like running through the tunnel. And you think the time, the 3 hour earlier thing just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And maybe I'm overthinking it and it's really not that big a deal. But to me, it was just like your typical... And like I said, this is probably the point, but this is just something that I just don't like. That's all I'm saying. Is that it's just very reminiscent of your typical slasher ending where it's like the killer's dead, or maybe it's not. The fact that we've killed the killer in the meat machine or whatever you want to call it, knowing that Keith was the killer 3 hours earlier, like that doesn't do anything for me. Like I guess I just don't get it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me on the way it was portrayed. But if you have a better understanding of that, you can let me know in the comments below. I was just hoping for a little bit more, just something different, I guess. That's all I really wanted, was some sort of different ending than what I got. But that's all right. And like I said earlier, the voice acting is just a bit low volume and unenergetic, which I keep saying some of these points that I dislike. Some of these things might be intentional, which I think is totally fine. And the negatives aren't like super serious for me. I just think for a horror game that we've seen done in these aesthetics with the PSX, like retro style with the serial killer and you're working in a store somewhere and then he chases you, and I really expect the atmosphere to like bring it home. You know what I mean? Because we've seen these games a lot lately, especially with Puppet Combo and the like. But I believe this is their like Comp 3 Interactive's like their first like real big game. They do have a couple of other games on their Linktree page. Like I think it's the Lighthouse Keeper and something else. I might have that wrong. Sorry, but you can go check that link out for yourself and find that. And yeah, I'm not holding the developer to some unrealistic standard. I'm merely sharing my opinion on what I experienced playing their game. But yeah, like I said, the negatives aren't a huge deal. Just for me, if you're gonna do this retro aesthetic serial killer sort of thing, which I think is becoming quite oversaturated as of late, you got to bring the atmosphere home. And like I said, if your idea was to make it sort of quirky and sort of satirical at the same time, like, you know, I can respect that. That's totally fine as well. I just have a very particular taste in horror. I am, to a degree, there's some horror that I'm just over, like it doesn't do anything for me anymore. And then there's the newer, like, weird experimental stuff that I've been getting into. So yeah, for this game, it had a lot going for it, but I think the atmosphere and the horror aspect of it just fell kind of flat for me. That's just my opinion. All right, so my final thoughts and my rating, which I've come up with I would say hopefully a decent rating system. But like I said, some of my review process is subject to change because it's the first time I've done this, and any feedback would be appreciated. Because yeah, I'd like to get better at this if, depending on how this is received, I guess I'll know what to do. All right, so final thoughts. I kind of just went over all of that. I liked the game. I don't hate it or think it's terrible. I think just the negatives are sort of akin to what I have a problem with most horror in general, is I want the game to make me feel a certain way, like dread or just, I don't know, like the fear of the unknown or the absence of people that, like, you know, the back rooms do that really well. And some of those games, like, there's nothing going on in them, and they have this weird way of selling you this strange atmosphere that just gets under your skin. And like I said several times now, that I can appreciate them having their own idea of what they're trying to create. This is their game. They made it, you know? It's their thing. So I could just realize that not everything is made for me or any of us. Sometimes you'll find a game like this, it's advertised well, it looks good, and it has all the pieces, but it doesn't quite hit that, I guess, like that funny bone of horror for me, at least. Overall, still a pretty enjoyable game. So for my rating, I have 1 through 5 is my rating, and 1 is poor, 2 is below average, 3 is average, 4 is above average, and 5 is excellent, ideal, sort of, it's the, you know, it's gangbusters kind of thing. But also have a plus system. So plus will just be additional points. So I might give this game a certain rating and then give it some pluses to show that it's not only average, but, or etc., whatever I might label a game. It has some pluses as well. So for this game, I'm going to rate it a 3, which is average. Let me rephrase that. I'm going to rate this game an average plus plus. So for me, it was just kind of average overall, even though it was enjoyable. And I won't go too far into that because I feel like I've beat it to death about what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to say it's an average horror game. And I'm going to get it 2 pluses. And the first plus is for the music. I think the music is really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it was very different. I like that it's inspired by sort of the metal theme. Like this metal, you know, like pig squealing kind of thing. I think it's really cool because that's one thing I forgot to mention in the sound design is when you're fighting the pig killer Slaw at the end, when you shoot him enough times, he does like a pig squeal like a metal vocalist would do. And I thought that was really cool. And the music in the boss fight is really good. It reminded me of Winds of Plague, an older metal band. I don't think it's around anymore. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what's up. So yeah, he gets 1 plus for music, and the second plus is just for the aesthetics. I think it looks really good. I think the game gives off a very nice visual appeal for the genre. So yeah, my final rating for Rewind or Die is average plus plus. And was the game worth the price, $11.99? For me, it might have been just a few dollars over what I would probably have paid, like knowing what would happen going in. But for an indie developer, I would say completely support them all the way through. You know, they put a lot of hard work into these games. $12 for almost 2 hours of gameplay. I mean, it's all right. That's my review for Rewind or Die. Let me know what you think of the game and my review in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with some of my points? And leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this content. I generally play games. I play horror games for the most part. Horror games. But I've been wanting to get into the review side of things, as I've said in this video. So if you have any feedback or anything, positive, negative, I don't really care. Just let me know what's up with what you think of my channel, or this video, I should say. And I like to hear thoughts on the game. Pretty cool. All right. Well, that'll be it for the video. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in the next one.